Have you ever seen a brilliant idea just fizzle out? Or been part of a team that just can't seem to get on the same page? Well, the answer almost always comes down to one thing: communication. In any business, communication is the absolute engine that drives everything. So to make that engine run smoothly, we've got to pop the hood and see how it works. Let's dive in.
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to map out the basic blueprint for how any message travels from point A to point B. Then, we'll look at the official highways and the secret back roads information takes. We'll check out the tools of the trade, figure out why messages get lost, and finally put together a plan for building way better communication.
All right, let's start at the beginning with the communication blueprint. Before you can fix something, you have to understand how it's supposed to work in the first place, right? So let's trace the journey every single message goes on.
At its heart, communication is just exchanging information. It sounds so simple. But that little gap between what someone sends and what someone else hears, that's where entire projects and even companies can fall apart. Because it's not just about talking. It's about being understood.
So you should think of every single message not as a one-way street, but as a round trip. This little diagram here shows that whole journey. See, information doesn't just get sent out into the void, it has to be received and, crucially, acknowledged for that loop to be complete. Let's follow a message from start to finish. Okay, so here's the trip. The sender comes up with a message. They choose a medium, an email, a phone call, a Slack message, to send it to the receiver. But here's the step that everyone forgets: feedback. Without that feedback, you have no idea if your message actually landed. That little loop back is the only way you know you've truly communicated. Now that we get the basic process, let's talk about the actual roads these messages travel on. Inside any company, information flows along specific paths. Some are official, paved highways, and, well, others are more like unofficial dirt tracks.
So on one side, you've got your formal communication. This is the official stuff: memos, annual reports, company-wide announcements. It's structured, it follows the chain of command, and it's on the record. Then, whoosh, you have the informal grapevine. The chats by the coffee machine or in the lunchroom. It's super fast, yeah, but it can be a total minefield of rumors and bad info. A smart leader knows you can't get rid of the grapevine, but you have to learn to listen to it.
And we can split these channels into two big arenas. Internal communication is all about how a company talks to itself, from team to team, manager to employee. External communication is how the company talks to the rest of the world, its customers, its investors, the public. You have to be great at both because a mistake in either one can be a huge problem.
Okay, once you know who you're talking to and how formally, you've got to pick your tool. And these days, businesses have a massive arsenal of communication tools to choose from. We can pretty much group them into three big buckets. You've got spoken, which is awesome for instant feedback. You've got written, which is perfect when you need a detailed record of something. And then, of course, there's the whole world of electronic communication. So, how do you pick the right tool for the right job? Is a quick text better than a formal email? Is a video conference worth the hassle? Well, it all comes down to a really important trade-off.
And here it is. This is the constant battle every manager is fighting: balancing cost against speed. This graph really lays it out. You've got cheap but slow options, like a physical memo, all the way up to instant but pretty expensive things, like a full-blown video conference. The real skill is knowing where on this chart you need to be for any given situation. You just don't use a sledgehammer to crack a nut,
And it's not just about the tool you use, it's also about the direction the message is going. Information can flow vertically, that's down from the leadership, or, just as important, back up from the people on the front lines. And it can also flow horizontally between people at the same level. Honestly, you can tell how healthy a company is by how freely information moves in all of these directions. Okay, so we've got a process, we've got channels, we've got tools. This should be easy, right? Well, not so fast. This is where we run into the roadblocks, all the things that can stop a message dead in its tracks.
So what's really getting in the way? Why do messages get misunderstood or ignored or just completely lost in translation? Let's take a look at the usual suspects. These barriers can be tricky. You've got things like distance, with teams spread all over the world. You have digital noise, where we're just overloaded with emails and notifications. You can have a boss who just doesn't listen to feedback, or the culture clash that happens during a merger. And then there's one of my personal favorites: jargon. That technical language that makes one department sound like they're speaking Klingon to another.
And look, this isn't just theory. Take the case of a company called Vina Casa Rosa.
Their leader had a really autocratic style, which created this one-way street for communication, where feedback was basically impossible. You combine that with a total refusal to use modern tools, and you get a perfect storm for failure. It hurt morale, and it definitely hurt their bottom line.
But hey, it's not all doom and gloom. Once we can spot the barriers, we can start building some bridges. So the big question is, how do we actually fix broken communication?
Fixing this really does take a game plan. It means actively training people in the skills of listening, speaking, and writing. It means being strategic about what you send so you don't overwhelm people. It means creating a culture where clarity beats jargon every single time. And maybe most important of all, it requires leaders who don't just allow feedback, they actively go looking for it. It's about using technology to build bridges, not more walls.
So, if you remember one thing from all of this, let it be this: you simply cannot have good coordination, good teamwork, or a good strategy without effective communication. It is the absolute foundation of any successful organization. Everything else is built right on top of it.
And that brings us to a final, kind of crazy question. We live in a world with more ways to connect than ever before in human history. Instant messages, video calls, social media. We are constantly connected. So why does it feel like real, genuine, clear communication is harder to find than ever? Something to think about.